When we talk about love, most people imagine closeness. They imagine safety, loyalty, familiarity, and the quiet comfort of knowing someone deeply. Love is the feeling of coming home. It is built through time, through shared experiences, through trust. It grows in the space where we feel secure, protected, and emotionally held. But desire operates by a very different logic. Desire does not thrive in complete familiarity. Desire needs mystery. It needs space. It needs the unknown. And this is where the first tension between love and desire begins to reveal itself. When two people first meet, everything about the other person is new. There is curiosity, there is discovery. You are asking questions, watching expressions, noticing the smallest details. Your imagination fills the gaps between what you know and what you don't yet know. In that early stage, love and desire often grow together because the relationship still contains distance. The other person is still partially unknown. But as love deepens, something important happens. You begin to close that distance. You learn their habits. You learn their fears. You know how they take their coffee, how they react when they are tired, what stresses them, what comforts them. Slowly, you become witnesses to each other's daily lives. And this intimacy is beautiful. It is the foundation of emotional security. Yet at the same time, this very closeness can begin to challenge desire. Desire requires a certain separateness. It requires seeing your partner not only as someone who belongs to you, but also as someone who exists beyond you. Someone who has their own inner world, their own autonomy, their own mystery. When we feel we completely know someone, when there is no more space for discovery, the spark of curiosity can begin to fade. This does not mean that love destroys desire, but it does mean that the two are fueled by different psychological needs. Love is rooted in attachment. It answers questions like, are you there for me? Can I rely on you? Do I feel safe with you? It is about protection and stability. In psychological terms, love calms the nervous system. Desire, on the other hand, is fueled by excitement, novelty, and uncertainty. It asks a very different question. Do I still want what I cannot fully possess? You see, desire thrives in the presence of a little distance. Not emotional distance in the sense of coldness, but psychological space. The ability to see your partner as separate from you. In long-term relationships, couples often work very hard to eliminate distance. They share everything. They become extremely intertwined. Their routines merge. Their responsibilities overlap. Their identities can even begin to fuse together. And while this deep connection strengthens love, it can sometimes weaken the conditions that allow desire to breathe. Think about moments when you suddenly see your partner in a different context, perhaps speaking passionately about something they care about, interacting confidently in their professional life, or laughing with others in a way that reminds you they are more than just the role they play in your daily routine. In those moments, you glimpse them again as a separate person, not just as my partner, but as an individual. And often that is when desire quietly reawakens, because desire is deeply connected to imagination. It requires the ability to step back and see the other person with fresh eyes. One of the paradoxes of long-term love is that the more completely we merge our lives, the harder it can become to maintain that sense of mystery. We move from looking at our partner to simply looking with them, at the bills, the responsibilities, the logistics of life, and slowly, the erotic energy that once existed between two individuals can get buried under the weight of daily familiarity. But here is the important insight. This tension is not a failure of the relationship. It is not a sign that something is broken. It is simply the natural result of two powerful human needs operating side by side. We need security, and we need freedom. We need closeness, and we need space. We want stability. But we are also drawn to what is unpredictable. Healthy relationships learn how to hold both. They allow intimacy to grow without completely erasing individuality. They create connection without eliminating mystery. They understand that the person you love should never become fully absorbed into your world. They must remain someone you can still discover. Because the truth is this: desire rarely dies from lack of love. It often fades from too much certainty. And sometimes the most powerful way to rekindle desire is not by getting closer, but by remembering how to see each other again as two separate, fascinating human beings, Love brings us together, but desire asks us to leave just enough space between us to keep reaching. If love is built on safety and familiarity, then we must also confront another paradox that quietly shapes many long-term relationships. The very things that make a relationship stable, predictability, reliability, routine, can slowly erode the energy that once made it exciting. At the beginning of a relationship, uncertainty plays a powerful role. You don't yet know where this connection will lead. You don't know how the other person will respond. You are attentive, alert, curious. Every message, every touch, every glance carries meaning. Your mind is engaged in a kind of emotional exploration. But over time, relationships move from exploration into organization. Life begins to structure the relationship. There are schedules, responsibilities, shared obligations. Perhaps there are children, careers, financial pressures, family expectations. Love begins to operate not only as a feeling, but as a system of cooperation. Two people building a life together. And this is beautiful. Stability is one of the great achievements of human relationships. To know that someone will be there tomorrow, next week, 10 years from now, this is not something to underestimate. It creates emotional security, and security allows us to function in the world with confidence. But desire does not always flourish in the same environment where stability thrives. Desire feeds on novelty. It feeds on the unexpected. It feeds on moments that interrupt routine rather than reinforce it. When everything in a relationship becomes predictable, the mind stops paying close attention. What once felt electric slowly becomes familiar. This is not because the partner has become less attractive, less interesting, or less worthy of desire. It is because the human brain is wired to notice change more than repetition. Think about how we experience music. The first time you hear a powerful song, it can move you deeply. But if that same song plays every day in the background, eventually your mind begins to filter it out. The melody hasn't changed, but your attention has. Relationships can function in a similar way. When couples settle into routines, who cooks dinner, who pays the bills, who picks up the children, who handles which responsibilities, they become efficient partners. They become teammates in the management of daily life. But sometimes, in the process of becoming excellent partners, they stop becoming intriguing lovers. The relationship becomes organized around logistics rather than curiosity. And curiosity is essential for desire. Desire asks questions, it wonders, it explores, it wants to know what else is possible between two people. But routine tends to close those questions. It tells us we already know the answer. You know what your partner will say. You know how they will react. You know how the evening will unfold. Predictability reduces emotional tension. And emotional tension is often the very ingredient that fuels attraction. This is why some couples feel confused when they say, "We love each other deeply, but the passion isn't the same anymore." Love has grown stronger, the bond is real, the commitment is solid, yet the relationship has become so stable that it no longer creates moments of surprise. And surprise is one of the most powerful triggers of desire. When something unexpected happens, when your partner reveals a new idea, a new ambition, a different side of themselves, it disrupts the pattern your mind has built. Suddenly you are paying attention again, you see them differently, you rediscover them. What many people misunderstand is that desire is not sustained simply by maintaining the relationship. Desire often requires periodically disrupting the patterns of the relationship. It means allowing space for new experiences, new expressions of identity, new forms of interaction. It means recognizing that the person you are with is not a fixed character in the story of your life, but a constantly evolving individual. The moment we assume we fully know our partner, we stop being curious about them. And when curiosity disappears, desire often follows. But when curiosity returns, when we allow ourselves to see our partner again as someone who still has mysteries, ambitions, creativity, complexity, that spark of fascination can return as well. The challenge then is not to eliminate routine entirely. Routine is necessary for life to function. But a relationship that only runs on routine slowly loses the emotional oxygen that desire needs. Healthy relationships learn to balance the two. They build stability, but they also introduce novelty. They create reliability, but they also protect moments of unpredictability. They allow life to become organized, but not completely scripted. Because the truth is, passion rarely survives in a relationship that never changes. Desire awakens when something shifts, when familiarity is interrupted, just enough for us to see the person beside us with fresh attention again. And perhaps the question we should all ask ourselves is this: when was the last time you allowed your partner to surprise you? And when was the last time you surprised them? There is another tension that shapes the relationship between love and desire, and it is perhaps the most subtle one of all. It is the tension between closeness and distance. In love, we are drawn toward closeness. We want to feel connected. We want to share our thoughts, our fears, our daily experiences. We want to build a life where two people move through the world side by side, supporting one another. Love says, "Come closer." But desire often whispers something different. Desire says, "I want you, but I also need to see you as separate from me." And this distinction matters more than we usually realize. When we first fall in love, we are deeply aware that the other person is not fully ours. They are still somewhat mysterious. They have their own life, their own world, their own independent identity. We are discovering them piece by piece. That distance, that space between two individuals, creates a kind of emotional electricity. We look at the other person and we think, who are you really? What else is there to know? What else is there to discover? But long-term relationships tend to move in the opposite direction. Over time, couples often merge their lives more and more completely. They share finances, homes, routines, social circles, responsibilities. They become a unit. And while this deep partnership is one of the most meaningful achievements of love, it can sometimes reduce the sense of individuality that fuels desire. Because desire thrives not just on closeness, but on the awareness of difference. Think about it this way. It is difficult to desire someone when they feel like an extension of yourself. When two people become so fused that their identities blur together, the sense of intrigue begins to fade. You already know everything. You share everything. You experience life through the same lens. In that environment, passion can quietly lose its intensity. This is why some people experience a surprising moment in their relationship when they see their partner in a completely different context. Perhaps they watch them giving a presentation at work, or performing on stage, or interacting confidently in a group of people. In that moment, something shifts. You are suddenly seeing your partner through fresh eyes. You are witnessing a part of them that exists outside the relationship. And that perspective can reignite attraction. You think, I didn't realize this side of you existed. What you are responding to in that moment is their individuality. Desire needs that sense of otherness. It needs to feel that the person in front of you is not fully known, not entirely predictable, not completely absorbed into your own identity. This does not mean emotional distance in the sense of detachment or neglect. Quite the opposite. A strong relationship requires deep emotional connection. But emotional connection is different from total psychological fusion. Healthy desire requires what we might call a dynamic balance between togetherness and separateness. Each partner needs space to remain a distinct individual, someone with their own interests, their own growth, their own evolving sense of self. When individuals continue to grow, the relationship remains alive. Two evolving people constantly rediscover each other. But when growth stops, the relationship can feel static. Many couples unintentionally create a kind of emotional enclosure. Everything is done together. Every experience is shared. Every thought is discussed. Every moment is synchronized. At first, this feels like intimacy, but over time, it can also eliminate the very space where desire breathes. Because desire often arises when we look at the other person and realize that they are not entirely ours to possess. They are someone we continue to choose. There is something profoundly attractive about watching your partner pursue something that belongs to them alone. Their passion for a project, their dedication to a craft, their curiosity about the world. In those moments, you are reminded that you are not simply living with a partner. You are living with a person whose inner life continues to expand. And that realization can be deeply magnetic. The goal in long-term relationships is not to eliminate distance completely, but to manage it wisely. Too much distance creates disconnection, but too little distance can dissolve the mystery that fuels attraction. When couples allow space for individuality, they create room for fascination. You can still love deeply. You can still build a life together. You can still share responsibilities and dreams. But you also remain two distinct people who continue to surprise one another. Desire is often strongest when we look at the person we love and realize that there are still parts of them we have not fully explored. Parts of them that are still unfolding. Parts of them that invite us to look again. And perhaps the real challenge in long-term love is this: to stay close enough to nurture the bond, but distant enough to keep seeing the other person as someone worth discovering again and again. Because the moment we stop discovering each other is often the moment desire quietly begins to disappear. And this brings us to perhaps the most important realization about love and desire. They are not enemies, but they are not identical either. They are two powerful forces that operate according to different psychological needs. Understanding this difference can transform how we think about long-term relationships. For many couples, the expectation is that if love is strong enough, desire will naturally follow forever. The story we have been told is simple: find the right person, fall in love, commit, and passion will take care of itself. But the reality is far more complex. Love seeks security. It wants stability, reliability, and trust. Love wants to know that the person beside us will stay, that they will be there in moments of uncertainty, illness, fear, and vulnerability. Love thrives on predictability because predictability creates safety. Desire, however, is far less interested in safety. Desire is fueled by novelty, uncertainty, imagination, and even a little risk. Desire wants to explore, to feel alive, to encounter something that sparks curiosity and excitement. Where love says, "I know you," desire often whispers, "I want to discover you." This is why, in many long-term relationships, couples can feel deeply connected emotionally while simultaneously experiencing a decline in erotic energy. They may love each other profoundly, they may respect one another, care for one another, support each other through life's challenges, and yet something essential feels absent. When this happens, people often interpret it as a sign that the relationship itself is failing. They think, if I truly loved this person, wouldn't I want them the way I did in the beginning? But the truth is that the beginning of a relationship is governed by very different psychological forces. At the start, everything is new. The other person is mysterious. The future is open. The relationship exists in a space of possibility rather than routine. Over time, however, relationships become organized around responsibility. There are bills to pay, schedules to manage, children to raise, households to maintain. Life becomes structured, and structure is excellent for stability, but it can slowly erode the sense of imagination that sustains desire. Erotic energy is not simply about physical attraction. It is about vitality. It is about feeling alive in the presence of another person. It is about experiencing the spark that says, something interesting is happening here. To maintain that spark in long-term relationships requires intention. It requires couples to move beyond the assumption that desire should happen automatically. One of the most powerful ways to revive desire is to reintroduce curiosity into the relationship. Curiosity about the partner, not just as someone who shares your daily life, but as someone who continues to evolve. People are not static beings. We grow, we change, we develop new interests, new ambitions, new fears, new dreams. But in long relationships, couples sometimes freeze each other in time. They assume they already know everything about the other person. The moment we believe there is nothing left to discover, desire begins to fade. Curiosity reopens the door. When you ask your partner new questions, when you observe them with fresh attention, when you take interest in how their inner world is changing, something shifts. The familiar person beside you becomes slightly mysterious again. And mystery is the oxygen of desire. Another crucial element is the willingness to create experiences that break routine. Routine is necessary for life to function, but desire rarely grows inside repetition alone. Shared adventures, new environments, creative experiences, these moments disrupt the ordinary pattern of life and awaken the senses. They allow couples to encounter each other outside the roles they normally occupy, Suddenly, you are not just co-parents, co-managers of a household, or partners in daily logistics. You are two individuals meeting again, and sometimes that is all it takes to reignite the spark. But perhaps the deepest insight is this: desire requires each person to remain connected to their own vitality. When individuals lose touch with their own sense of aliveness, when life becomes purely about obligation and survival, it becomes difficult to generate passion anywhere, including in relationships. Erotic energy begins within the individual before it can exist between two people. This means nurturing your own curiosity, creativity, confidence, and sense of possibility. When people feel alive in their own lives, they naturally bring that energy into their relationships. The relationship then becomes not just a place of comfort, but a place of vitality. Love gives us the safety to build a life together. Desire gives us the energy that makes that life feel vibrant and meaningful. And the challenge of long-term relationships is not choosing between these two forces, but learning how to honor both. To build security without suffocating mystery, to cultivate closeness without eliminating individuality, to maintain familiarity while continuing to rediscover each other. Because love may be what brings two people together, but the willingness to keep seeing each other with curiosity, imagination, and openness, that is what keeps the relationship alive. And perhaps the real question every couple must ask themselves is not simply, do we love each other? But something far more powerful. Are we still willing to discover who the other person is becoming?